Good evening, everybody. It is the Rabble Network. It's Monday evening at 6:30, and that means, of course, it's a women's show, and we're also, of course, part of the Talk Sport fan network. I better get that in because the boss is with us tonight. Stepping into the breach due to a lot of work commitments and Brian's brother's birthday, we're privileged to be joined by the boss himself, Martin Douglas. Martin, how are you this fine Monday evening?
I am very well. I feel like I've done about 8,000 shows today, but yes, I'm very well, and I'm pleased to be here.
Good. 8,000. Did something happen today? Something happened with Rangers today?
Just Rangers, Wolf. Just Rangers.
Of which, of course, there'll be more of at 7:15 when you're back again.
7:30.
7:30 with the main pod. You keep changing times and no telling me, but anyway.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the reason I changed it to 7:30 was so that you guys that give up your time every week to do the women's show don't need to rush.
Good, which we've had to do for the last few weeks. Anyway, and we're also joined by a women's show regular, man who has his head upside down. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing not too bad for having my head upside down.
That's so harsh.
It's so unoriginal as well, but you know, I'm used to it.
There you go. There's a sniper asking what Martin's doing here. What Martin's doing here is he's filling a hole, and he was actually at the game yesterday, so he is well placed to discuss what we're coming on to discuss. But first of all, Alan, before we discuss yesterday's game at K Park against Motherwell, last Wednesday we were privileged to be in the Thornton Suite at Ibrox for the Women's Supporters Collaboration Forum.
We were indeed, and I'll never pass up an opportunity to walk through those front doors at Ibrox, walk up that marble staircase and along the hallways. You know, it's something that will never ever get old. Having the privilege to be able to do that, but really good that the club are genuinely keen at supporter engagement. You know, there's a lot to be criticised about what the club do and how they do a lot of things, but one thing they have put time and effort into is increasing supporter collaboration and engagement, and that this was certainly something we didn't really know how it was going to play out. We're told it was a round table format. We'd have a bit of a Q&A with Donald Gillies, and we were also fortunate enough to have a bit of a Q&A with Leanne Crichton as well, who also joined for a while.
Yeah, and it was, as you say, it was very well put together. It was well done. I mean, the fact they did the Q&A before they did the sort of roundtable discussion was very good. So what was the main things you took from it?
I think the positivity that they still have. You know, I think both Donald and Leanne are very open. This season hasn't quite went as well as they'd have expected or wanted to on the park. I think the fact that they're very open about how hard it's been losing players they weren't planning on losing. There's a natural turnover of players that everybody would have expected, but it certainly seemed the club were maybe prepared for Jo leaving, but given that she didn't leave immediately at the end of the season, they were probably caught by surprise when she did leave. You know, and even though they had prepared contingency plans, you know, it was interesting to hear Donald talk how they felt it only right and proper that they gauged the interest that was coming in, because the job was never advertised. The job was clearly out there and available, and the club seemed very impressed by the calibre of people who applied, but it seemed very clear that Leanne was always a choice.
Yeah, I mean, to put you all on the picture, Donald Gillies, the men's managing director, said that although it was never advertised, the calibre of candidate that was putting in their CVs for the manager job when it became available when Jo left was, he says, they were off. His own words, he says they were off the scale. I mean, there was managers who'd won trophies and leagues and stuff in America and all these sorts of places applying for the job. But as Alan said, you know, it did appear that Leanne was always top of the list.
Can I interject here then, Wolf, just for 2 seconds, and see if that is the case? And no disrespect to Leanne, right? But if that is the case, why have Rangers not went for a manager who's won things?
I think probably only reading between the lines. I think it's because Leanne knows the Scottish game, knows the players. There wouldn't really be a settling in period because, you know, the fact that Jo left halfway through the summer, it's not left right at the start of pre-season or at the end of last season. They've brought in somebody that knows the Scottish game, that knows a lot of the players, because obviously she's been involved with the Scotland unders. She was at Motherwell as well as a coach. She was at Glasgow City latterly before she came to us as well. So Leanne does know the Scottish game inside out. Whereas if you bring in somebody from Europe or from North America, they've got to get to know the game. They've got to get to know the players. Let's be honest, in Scotland, it's a wee bit. It's probably quite quirky because you're going to places like K Park and and Spartans. With the greatest respect to these places, they're not the sort of football grounds that you would get in places like probably Holland, Italy, United States, places like that. So it does take a bit of getting used to, I would imagine. So I would think probably for those reasons.
I think
do you agree with that?
Probably, and they also talked about Leanne's work with youth and how much the club want to make the most of their academy. I mean, the young players coming through at Rangers, it's quite clearly the best academy for girls in the country. By a comfortable distance, I would wager. And Leanne's work in that sort of youth set up and our knowledge of the younger players and the Scotland set up and our understanding of what it takes to win in Scotland. Leanne's pretty fresh off a playing career. It yielded several SWPL titles, several Scottish Cups and several League Cups, plus I think it's 72 caps for Scotland, playing at major finals. So Leanne's not got management experience, but she's certainly vastly experienced and very well respected in the game. And I think it was as much as the club have explored and spoken to other people who are interested, clearly Leanne's ticked more boxes than anybody else.
I get that, right, and I understand that obviously there's differences between men's football and women's football. No, I'm not getting into that debate, right? There is differences. But would we accept that for the men's team, to have somebody who, all right, maybe knows the league but has never really managed before? And before you come and hit maybe Steven Gerrard, I get the Steven Gerrard thing. Right, but I just mean, and again, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here because you know a lot more about the women's team and how the women's league works than I do. It's just that when you hear that there was loads of interest in the Rangers job for experienced managers who have won things all across the world and stuff, then I would be immediately asking the question, well, I get what you're saying about Leanne, but why would you not want a manager in who has the experience of winning trophies, especially as we're now hearing this is what's being called a transition season?
Well, as Alan was saying, it's probably because they've obviously got. It's not quite a list of tick boxes, but there's obviously lots and lots of boxes that need ticked, and Leanne obviously ticks most of them. I mean the youth academy bit's a very, very good point because we have got the best girls academy in the country, and that's. I mean, we sold we made money on a transfer for the first time ever in the summer by selling, one of our young players. We've never done that before. We've never sold a player for money before. So, that's obviously what they're looking at, because it has to become self-sustainable. And that's something that Leanne can build on because, as I say, she's been involved in the Scotland unders. She knows a lot of the kids. She's coached one or two of them when they were on loan at Motherwell while she was there. So I just think it is a case she ticks most of the boxes, and it probably is a transitional season because of the amount of players that left. I mean, they admitted that they weren't expecting, the players to leave right at the end of the window. They weren't expecting Kirsty Howitt to leave, for example. They admitted they thought she was in with the bricks, didn't think she would ever leave. But nobody grudges Kirsty Howitt the fact that she got a chance to go and play in London. Okay, it's at Crystal Palace. They're not Chelsea or Arsenal or whatever, but nobody's grudging her that. Rio Hardy leaving as well wasn't that much of a surprise, but the team needed completely rebuilt. So I think, Alan, as you said, I think Leanne probably just did tick the most boxes. And there's Keith. I mean, there's Keith coming in. Keith's very knowledgeable about this as well. See Joe Potter come in with the same type of background as Leanne, and apart from not winning a title, she did well on her spell here. Leanne will do well once she gets a couple of transfer windows. I think, Alan, I don't know if you agree. I think Leanne's more than capable of winning us trophies this season. Maybe not the league. That's maybe a stretch. The way Glasgow City are playing, it's possibly a stretch that we're going to win the league. But I still think the cups have got to be, in with a great good chance of them.
Oh, listen, definitely. And as much as an Old Firm game's never going to be easy, it's still the best draw we could have asked for in the semi-final of the Sky Sports Cup, because we'll only have to beat one in the top two teams to go and win it. As much as we're currently ahead of Hibs in the league, I think our battle is to finish above Glasgow City and Hibs this season. I'm as much as you can't take it for granted, I firmly believe we'll finish above Celtic and Hearts. But the last 3 years, the league's went down to the last game of the season with at least 3 teams who can win the title. I think Leanne's knowledge of how the league works and how intense it is and how little margin for error you've got is a big factor in her coming in and taking a job and being able to relatively hit the ground running. I think we've not done the team any favours. The first 2 games we played at Ibrox were Hearts and City, where we moved games early in the season against Motherwell and Aberdeen to Broadwood. I think had we played those games at Ibrox and started building up a familiarity with it, like we're starting to do now, it might have stood the team in greater stead. But certainly the injuries and the transfers have absolutely ripped the squad apart and gave Leanne and the team a massive challenge at the start of this season.
Yep, and just as we're getting a familiarity with Ibrox, we're told there won't be any more games at Ibrox till at least February, because obviously the groundsman saying you ain't playing on there because we need it for the men's team. So that was a bit of a... There's not a lot of games, to be fair, because of the winter break and stuff like that, but still, it's still a bit of a blow to see, that I want to play most games at Ibrox, and then all of a sudden it's December and January, you're not playing any games at Ibrox. So that was... At least Donald admitted he was frustrated about that as well. You know what I mean? So that was.
It'll be interesting if they decide they're going to play the Hibs game at Broadwood. It's in the middle of January. It's the only one in January planned for us to be at home, unless we've got a cup game at home. Obviously, a big game. They might decide to play that. But I've not got a note of the men's fixtures that weekend. See if we're at Ibrox, but if it's a clean weekend, I dare say they might still look at playing the Hibs game at Ibrox.
Yeah, there's also the I checked that out. We've also the age old question that we've had, and I did promise Paul I would ask the question. I didn't actually ask the question, but Carl did, about the lack of TV coverage, Alan. So you want to fill Paul in on what the reply to that was?
Yeah, Carl was very keen to ask that question, so she did ask that as part of the sort of Q&A that we got to do while Leanne was still there. And the response from the club, Donald spoke about it a bit, but he also involved Rebecca Galt in it, who does all the video production and all the camera work for the women's team. She's always at the games, and part of the reason is that it's only Rebecca who's always there, which means she's doing all the video capture, all the editing, all the sort of work that goes on behind the scenes to actually put that product out. And the media team don't want to put out a product that they're not particularly happy with. And Donald also admits that the club do have concerns that it'll impact the attendances when they're really trying to grow the attendance, which we can understand the club think like that. We did go back to them and say we really don't believe that will happen, because if people want to go to the game, they'll go to the game. But I do feel it's something that the club have looked into it. The club certainly have costed it. They continue to look into it. The supporter team filled us in on some of the details of what they're doing to look at the permutations of how they can do it, what they can offer. They're monitoring how other clubs do it through their own channels. So there's a lot of work in the background going on by the club on the feasibility of streaming games, but it's not something that appears to be imminent.
Yeah, Mark,
So
were you-
I'm sorry, but that to me sounds like a complete and utter cop out from the football club. A club the size of Rangers, the financial backing that our football club's got, and they can only afford to employ one person to work at a women's game.
that astounded me. I know Rebecca's the only one with a camera, and it astounded me that she does all the editing as well. I mean, the way they put it across was to make
There
it
was
a
3 members of
package.
staff at that game the other night, Wolf.
Yeah, I know.
So
But I mean, the way they put it across was to make it a proper, presented package. She'd need to do pre-match and post-match interviews, which she would have to edit as well as filming the game. I thought that astounded me. I know they've got to make it cost effective, you know what I mean? But I don't. And I mean, Donald's right. Probably he said 80% of the games are streamed or screened already. I don't think it's quite as high as 80%. But a lot of the games are on, be it BBC Alba or BBC Online. I mean, that game yesterday was supposed to be on BBC Online. In fact, it's supposed to be on BBC Scotland. But because Motherwell could only get K Park at 4:00 and it clashed with BBC Alba's showing Glasgow City Hibs, they decided to show the Celtic game instead. So our game was a 4:00 kickoff. Otherwise, we'd do an earlier kickoff and live on the telly. So that's the sort of thing they're up against as well.
Well, let me also say that, and this is I don't know, breaking news or whatever. I was in discussions with the club at the start of the season to cover the women's team and the B team. So that was for pre-match interviews. That was for live streaming, live streaming the pre-match interviews, doing the podcast before and after the games, interviewing the manager after the games, and the club just stopped getting back to me completely. And by the way, they were the ones who approached me about doing it, because I approached them about doing press for the men's first team, and they got back to me and says, no, we don't want you to do that, but would you be up for covering the women's and the B team? Because I've done the B team before. And I says, yep, no problem. Let me know what you want. Let me know when you want me to do it. Let me know all the information. And they got back to me a couple of times and then just blanked me. So they could have easily have came to me and went, look, could you put something in place that you could do all your stuff for your own podcast and even help us out? And I would have went, no problem, I'll help you out. But the club, I don't know what's going on with the media department at the football club. And that's not just for the women's team, that's for the academy and for the men. But it's not been run properly. It's not been run right. And it's been done lazily, in my opinion. And it's been done on the cheap. Because they had the opportunity to work with me. And I'm not saying that I'm some big, come and look at me. But I offered to help the club. And the club asked me to help them and then completely blanked me. So it's not just on the women's team, Wolf, it's on the whole aspect of the media side of the football club.
Oh no, I get that. I mean, that's a whole different discussion for a different podcast than this one. And obviously we're aware of all that because you bent my ear about that more than once. And
it was something.
It's just disrespectful. It's just completely disrespectful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There was a discussion we got into last night on the boardroom. You know, I do have faith in the people within the media department at Rangers, but I think they're vastly under-resourced. And I certainly hope that's something that, as I said last night, you know, I certainly hope that's something that changes with the new ownership. And they're clearly looking at more than just what's on the park. So I do have hopes it will improve, but, you know, I don't, going back to Paul's point, you know, I don't think it's imminent that we're going to see the women's games streamed. Certainly not going to happen this season.
No, it's not. There was also a point. The last thing about this fans thing that we were at. I'm not sure if I started that. I thought I had. Maybe I didn't. Oh, there we go. Again from Paul. Is Leanne looking to bring players in for January? Martin, I'll put this one to you. What Donald said was, when Joe was there, Joe was happy to work with a squad of 25. Leanne wants to work with a squad slightly bigger than that. And because of last-minute departures at the end of the transfer window, in other words, Liv and Kirsty, we're actually working with a squad of 23. That's if everybody's fit, which they're not. So I think the answer to Paul's question probably is going to be yes.
Oh, it has to be, because even if you're not an avid watcher of the women's team, if you only catch games here and there, or you maybe only catch the big games, it's obvious that this Rangers team isn't as strong as what it was even 2 years ago. It's obvious that it needs additions. I take what you guys are saying about, you know, the academy and the young girls that are coming through, And no doubt, in a wee bit of time, we'll speak about a certain Lara Croft, who I think is just an outstanding young footballer. And I think she's got a massive, massive future ahead of her. So that there's
You're talking about Maycroft. I think you're getting a wee bit mixed up.
sorry, I'm thinking of Lara Croft, Tomb Raider.
I was going to let that slide, Alan.
I knew I got the name wrong as soon as I seen Wolf smile. But yeah, sorry, mate. I'm staring at her name and I still called her Lara. So there we go. Apologies, mate.
That says more about you than anything else, Martin, to be fair.
Really, Angelina Jolie, man. But anyway, no, again, incredibly talented footballer at such a young age. So there is quality within the ranks at Rangers. But you two can answer this question far better than me. Is this Rangers team that we're seeing in the park right now anywhere near the Rangers team that we've seen a couple of years ago? My answer would be no. So I think Leanne needs reinforcements in January.
Well, Paul's comment sums up. Right now, we've only got 2 fit strikers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That tells its own story. But before we move off this, Keith's quite rightly, Alan, throwing in the discussion about moving the fan, about where they site the fans for the games at Ibrox. Now, obviously, they put them in the Sandy Garden lower because it's opposite the TV cameras. But as Donald says, it's been highlighted to him that does it really matter if you can see the fans on the telly because 90% of the ground's empty anyway.
Yeah, listen, it's a fair point, but given that there's less cameras at the women's games, I'd be more interested in moving the cameras over to the Sandy Garden stand and the fans into the main stand. It's a unique opportunity to actually show off the main stand, and I think the stand will look just that wee bit busier. There's a bit more going on in terms of the enclosure rather than the Sandy Garden front, and it'll maybe just make the crowd look just that little bit bigger. It's all about the optics, and I think that might just help busy it up a wee bit. They're already got to open the stand in terms of getting players in, families in, so they could bring that over and only have the main stand open. It's also far better for any disabled access, the front of the enclosures. Far easier to get in than being stuck in a corner. So I think there'll be a lot of upsides to it. But
yeah, so do I. It also means you could open for like the lesser games, if you like. You could open one side of the enclosure. You don't need to have the whole stand open. You can open one side, and if it gets busy, open the other side. Whereas the way it is now in the Sandy Garden front is the whole front of the stand, and people are spread all across it, which was a point that was made as well about trying to condense them in the middle to create a better atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely. But the club went on and he had everybody in their groups discussing the pros and cons of playing at Broadwood, playing at Ibrox. And also, interestingly, they want to know where the fans want to see Rangers in 5 years' time, in terms of where we're playing, what sort of success we've had in that time and what our expectations are. So a long way to go before we see if this is any more than sort of a tick box exercise, but there was a genuine interest in the club and gauging the mood of the fans, and very interested to see how that develops over the next couple of years.
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting to spend the first 24 minutes talking about that, but there you go. So we will move on to yesterday's game, but before we do, we have somebody watching us from, I'm guessing, watching us from Barcelona, given that they take their daughter to all the Barcelona women's games. So Catalan 94, welcome along. I hope you're enjoying what you're watching.
That looks like some house, by the way. His profile picture. That looks like some house.
Nice garden for growing up playing football in for his daughters.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I say, yesterday at East Kilbride against Motherwell, I better do my best Brian Fotheringham here, make a mess of this team lineup. The Rangers team lined up with Jenna Fife in goal, Nicola Doherty, Leah Eddy, Jess Pegram, Ailey Austin, Shim Kim, Jodie McCleary, Mia McCauley, Quinty Sabaggio, Laura Berry, and Katie Wilkinson. Alan, what was your initial thoughts when you saw the team? Because I never even asked you, although I saw you yesterday, I never asked you what you thought of the team.
I thought it was as strong as it was going to be. It was notable Lou Ming-Wen was back from international duty on the bench. The bench looking stronger again. the 3 young players still on the bench, still involved in the squad, which is good to see. Laura Rafferty on the bench as well, but Maycroft being rested was only sort of slight surprise, but it was good to see Shinji Kim back in the starting 11. The first time in quite a few weeks we saw that. And it saw Quinty Ceballos playing a bit deeper, which I thought suited her much better than playing in an advanced sort of role in the midfield. And I thought she had a very good game as a result.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, noticeable as Alan says, the three academy kids that stepped up due to lack of numbers on the bench. Okay, none of them got on. And Sasha Morrow, Erin O'Brien, and Phoebe O'Donnell. Although Phoebe wasn't listed when they tweeted out the team, but she was definitely there. So, as we were just talking about, nice to see the young kids at least not just getting jettisoned and still being involved in the squad.
100%. And like you guys were saying about the academy that we've got, it's great to see them. I wish you could see more of it in the men's team, if I'm being brutally honest with you. But like I say, Maycroft, right, I'm going to get that right. I've only seen her 2 or 3 times, and I'm ridiculously impressed by her. Mia McCauley's probably, I don't know if you would agree, probably the best player in Scotland, or is that my blue tinted specs just coming out there? Best player in Scotland?
You wouldn't be. I wouldn't argue the case. I wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't argue the case.
But that, I suppose that goes towards your argument again for Leanne Crichton as well, that she's not afraid to use youth players, and she's not afraid to bring them through, and they're not just there to make up the numbers either.
Well, no, the fact that we've seen a couple of them, one, okay, they didn't go on yesterday, Alan, and I thought they probably might have done if we put the game to bed a bit, but we missed. Leanne said after the game it's probably the most complete 90 minutes we've had, which when I heard that I kind of disagreed with it, but having thought about it, she's probably right, because we did miss a hell of a lot of chances.
Oh, we did, and I think it was probably the most consistent 90 minutes we've seen this season. We've seen wildly varying halves of football this season, where we've been either brilliant or absolutely terrible. There's been very little middle ground in some games, but I think yesterday was a fairly consistent and steady performance. I don't think it was a special performance at all, but it was a very solid professional performance. I know the only worry was it took us a long time to score the second goal, and you always worry that we've got a defensive lapse in us, and until we got that second goal, which was closely followed by a third, we're never entirely comfortable at the 3 points.
Yeah, right, we'll get to them. So I like doing these things chronologically. So we'll go back to the swing around back to the start of the game. 9 minutes into the game, it was actually quite a nice team goal. Leah played the ball out of defence to Nick Dock out wide. She put it into Quinty Ceballos, or Ceballos, or whoever we're saying Quinty's name. She played it into Jodie McCleary, who, as has been noted in the comments, had an absolutely fantastic game yesterday. She played really well. She put it into Katie Wilkinson, who inside the box doesn't really miss a lot.
No, from what I've seen, Jodie's really stepped up this season. To be fair, I remember a couple, maybe was it last season or the season before, I was watching them. Obviously, she's young, but she looks okay. But I don't know if Jodie was more a confidence player, and she's kind of grew into that confidence a wee bit. But she definitely looks a much better player. And Katie Wilkinson, look, you give her a chance in front of goal like that, 9 times out of 10 she scores. She's absolutely lethal. One thing I will say about Katie Wilkinson, she comes very deep a lot of the time to get the ball. And I don't know if she needs to keep doing that. I don't know if it's just maybe it was out of a little bit of frustration yesterday about the amount of chances that were getting created and should have been scored. But she comes very, very, at some point she's well inside her half to come and pick up the ball. But no, look, you give her the ball in that position, she's going to score.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you agree, Alan, I think she comes deep because she was used to playing with Rio last season, when if she would come deep, Rio would be, right up top, and she would assist the ball on to her to get. That's, I think, possibly why
nobody's doing that now.
It's a very different sort of setup, because as Will says, we've played 2 up front with a striker playing in the hole behind. So, there was a lot of rotation amongst the strikers last year, and there isn't really anybody up front for Katie to do that. Certainly Laura Berry's playing wide right now because no wingers fit other than Mia. So Laura will drift inside, which gives Katie a wee bit of freedom to drop back. But I'd like to see her play that wee bit higher up and play on the edge. You know, she's not going to run away from defenders and chase the balls over the top like Rio Hardy or Kirsty Howard would, or even Laura Berry does. But you know, I'd like to see her stay higher up the park. But it does give an opportunity for people to see it. Kate Wilkinson's not just a goal scorer, but also a very good football player.
Oh, she's brilliant with the ball at her feet. But I don't think she gets enough credit for how good she is with the ball at her feet and the kind of link-up play that she does. But like you guys are saying, Leanne's playing in a completely different style, a completely different system now. So, and it'll take time, especially if you, like you're saying, well, if she's so used to that kind of interplay with Rio and stuff like that, it will take time. But she really does need to work on just kind of staying towards that box.
Yeah, she does. And Alan, as a half, that was the only goal of the first half. But as a half went on, as I said earlier, we missed a hat load of chances. I mean, Mia was having her own personal battle with the wheel. She put one off the bar. Quinty pulled a great save out the keeper just before half time, and in between the two of them, Laura Berry hit the keeper, but really she should probably have scored.
She really should have, but Chloe Logan had a great game in goal for Marvel. She's been a great pickup for them, but you know, Laura will be disappointed she's went through and goal and not beat the keeper, but I think it was encouraging we were making chances. I just don't think we were maybe moving the ball quite quick enough in the last third day park. I think we needed to be moving the ball a wee bit quicker and taking the shots that wee bit earlier. We were allowing Morrill to get into a good shape, and we know what you're up against Morrill. They're a very, very well drilled and experienced team. You know, they're very well organised at the back and they'll throw everything in front of the ball to get the blocks in. So you always have to work to beat that Morrill team. But one goal at half time, you know, I think we deserved to be in the lead, but probably hadn't done quite enough to be comfortable in having the game finished.
No, yeah, I do slightly agree that Motherwell played well, but Wolf, I also agree with you that, you know, we should have been at least 2-3-0 up at half time. On another day we would have been. I don't think it was so much down to Motherwell playing really well. I think it was down to how poor we were in front of goal of them. And I know that probably sounds quite harsh, and I don't mean it to sound like that, but on another day, well, that's 2 or 3-0 at half time.
Well, another day it is, but as Alan says, the Lassie Logan played well in goal for Motherwell. I mean, you know, she stopped. She had a couple of really good saves second half. That save from Laura. I say Laura should score. She probably should, but it was still a good stop. And the save the Lassie made for Quinty just around half time. That was almost a worldie. You know, there was also one kicked off the line. There was all sorts. I mean, it was like the Alamo. I mean, Motherwell, although they played okay, didn't really offer anything. I mean, no. Jenna Fife had nothing to do. In 90 minutes, Jenna Fife had nothing to do. If it wasn't for the fact it was pouring rain and her kit was soaking, I don't think she'd even need to have washed it, to be perfectly honest.
My car was safe in the second half, Wilf.
Yes, it was, because as Martin pulled in just after the game had started, the first thing that happened was the ball hit his car, and he was most upset about it. Yes. But anyway, on to the second half. Second half, Alan. It sort of starts the way the first half finished. It was basically all Rangers, lots and lots of the ball. Have a look at the possession stats, but they're probably off the charts. And after
74% for Rangers.
Right, okay, there you go. I knew you would know that. I knew you were here for something. 65 minutes. We took Kim off. We gave Cammy some time to win. I still think that was probably more or less a planned substitution, because Camille seems to be getting, you know, bled back into the team gradually after she's been out for a while.
Yeah, she does, but she's now at the point where, as we heard on Wednesday, she's now sort of chapping at doors, wanting to play more. You know, they've been very, very careful about building her up. We were obviously conscious of how much impact she makes it, and it took her a while to get a long run in the team last year, but she still contributed. I think it was 13 goals plus a number of assists last year. So she's obviously a very important player for us, you know, and she really offered a spark in that second half, and we stepped up our game when Cammy came on, and it was great to see. She got involved in everything. You know, she's tiny, but she'll put herself about. She'll go and challenge for a ball. She'll go and challenge and win headers, and never gives up. Even when she's getting kicked up and down the park, she just gets up and gets on with it and goes looking to make an impact.
She breathed a bit of life into the game for me. I don't know if it was just maybe the Motherwell players were starting to get a bit of tiredness because of all the defending they were having to do, but she definitely came on and made an impact straight away. I thought she was excellent when she came on.
She did, Alan, because within 2 minutes of her coming on, it was 2-0.
Yeah, and listen, it looked like it might have been a lost cause for Ailey chasing to byline to get the ball across, but she managed it. Brilliant cross. I was maybe just a wee bit behind Quinty, but she's managed to hook a volley into the back of the net, and it was a tremendous bit of technique from Quinty to get that contact on the ball and beat a keeper playing very well. So 2-0 really took the pressure off the players. I think it was a very well earned goal by Quinty. As I said, I think she benefited from playing up a bit deeper yesterday and got much more joy on the ball, and a goal, and a very good goal at that, just capped off a good performance.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sorry, Martin, back to your earlier point about Wilco not being particularly mobile. When the ball went kind of wide from Laura Berry, Ailey chased it. Wilco looked as if she was about to start running for it as well, and then he said, I'll just leave it to the young team.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I just quickly go back to what Alan was saying there about Quinty as well? And maybe you guys will be able to answer this probably better than me. There was a look of relief when she scored, as if that goal meant quite a lot to her.
Yeah, I think she probably realised. I mean, she got hooked at half time in the game on Friday, a week past Friday against Celtic, because she really didn't have a very good game against them. I was quite surprised to see her starting yesterday, and it probably was relief because she's been knocking on the door of scoring. And let's say she wasn't particularly good in the Old Firm game. And
I don't think, Wolf, that she was particularly great against Motherwell either.
I think she was involved a lot more.
She was okay.
Yeah, she was involved a lot, but she's very tidy on the ball. She's very, very tidy on the ball. She's a good link-up player, I think. And let's be honest, she's still getting... I mean, there was the interview done after the game, which I caught just before we came on, and she was asked, how are you finding Scotland? She says, it's strange, it's difficult. Because, I mean, she's away off an international. I thought she was Dutch, but she's away playing for Alan. You might be able to tell me. I can't remember who she's away to play for.
Suriname.
That's who it is. She's away to play for Suriname, who, so, I mean, she's in a strange country. It's all new. She's still relatively young. So she is settled. When I says that the rest of the team are helping her settle in. So it probably was a relief to her to score the goal. And let's be honest, it was a hell of a finish.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
I think the way you've described Quinty's performance probably describes the performance of the team yesterday. I don't think it was brilliant, but I think it was okay. Borderline good, but it certainly wasn't a special performance or one that you will go and rave about for weeks and weeks on end.
No, but it was still a big win. We kept a clean sheet. That's a bonus for the women's team for a start, because that's not something they did an awful lot of. And as you said earlier, Alan, very, very quickly after the second one, we got the third one, and this was an absolutely wonderful goal when Ailey played the ball to Jodie, and as we said, Jodie was playing, was doing really well. And as where are we? I can't get these things to work. There we go.
While you're doing that, Wolf, right? I will just quickly say that you were asking me about stats earlier, right? Just while you're looking that up, Rangers had 25 shots and 10 on target, and Genevieve had to make no saves, and the Motherwell keeper had to make 7.
There you go. So it was the one-way traffic we thought it was, and it probably should have been more than 3. But as Keith's saying, Ailey Austin's progressing well at fullback. I mean, Alan, she's playing more as a wing-back than a fullback, really. She's up and down that line all the time. She was involved in the second and third goals. I mean, her ball into Jodie for the third goal was on point, and then Jodie gave it to Laura. And talk us through Laura's finish.
Listen, just go and watch it. There was a lot of similarities to Quinty's. Although the ball was more on the deck, but what Laura Berry needs to take a her chances. She's getting a lot of football this year, and I think Laura Berry just needs to go and show that belief, and that coolness in front of goal. She's scored goals at every single level she's played at, and scored tons of goals at every level she's played at. She's done it at first team level at Motherwell, so this is her chance, and she's finding the back of the net, and she's starting to do it regularly, playing for us in the first team, and it's absolutely brilliant to see, because you see how much it means to her. You see how much it means to all the young team. You saw how much they were celebrating at Ibrox a week past on Friday, and borderline crossing the line celebrating, but I don't mind that. I'm absolutely delighted to see that. And Laura Berry, no hesitation. She could have tried to take a touch. She should have scored in the first half. That could have played in her mind, but nothing in her mind other than getting a shot away.
That's the perfect comment for multiple man, Wolf, because it was the venom and the power that she got in that was incredible. It was some finish. No keeper in the world, men's or women's football, saving that strike. It was hit with that much venom. But can we just go back to what you were talking about with Ailey Austin? How many times during that game did us three turn around and go, she's screaming for the ball, she's in acres of space, and nobody's passing to her? The amount of times Ailey was in an absolute abundance of space and she never got the ball. Now, I don't know if that's because Leanne's trying to get them to play a certain way, play to certain sides at certain times and do this, and they're instructed to do that. But the amount of times that she had that basically the full right-hand side of the pitch to herself.
Yeah, I think part of what you said there was wrong. She wasn't screaming for the ball. I think that's part of the problem. I think on the pitch she's possibly too quiet because she's in lots and lots of space. And a lot of times she wasn't screaming for the ball. She was maybe standing with her hand up, but she wasn't, because obviously there's not that big a crowd and she was right in front of us for a while. She wasn't really screaming for it. So, and let's be honest, you're asking a lot in conditions like that for somebody to look up and ping a 40-yard ball across the park. But I know what you're saying.
Along the deck, she was in that much space.
You wouldn't play along the deck in that because it would just get stuck because it was so bloody wet. So, but Alan, I don't know what you think about it, but I think yes, they should have given her more of the ball because we were getting on about it yesterday. But I think Ailey probably could be a bit more vocal.
Yeah, I think they're both very valid points. But I've said consistently, I believe we've got the best young fullbacks in Scotland, and Ailey on the right and Fallon Connolly-Jackson on the left, and I think we'll see both of them go from strength to strength. But we switched to fullbacks because Nick Dock got a rest as Fallon came on, and Lee Ming-Wen came on for Ailey and made a big impression at right back. So
she impressed. She's
going to come on and play well. She's the only one really experienced we signed in the summer. So if Lee Ming-Wen's going to come in and perform like that, it's going to make Ailey raise her game. Ailey's been excellent this season, and she's going to have to raise her game and to compete with Lee Ming-Wen. And I think that's only going to bode well for us.
Well, if I don't know, so sorry to interrupt again, I don't know if you could see when Lee Ming-Wen came on, that Alan talked about experience there. She was talking to every player. Yeah. And she was saying, right, I'm going to go here, you pass the ball here, or you cut inside there. I mean, even when she had the ball, she was talking to players and telling them where to be on the park. You could see the experience, and you know that she's always going to be a 6, 7, 8 out of 10. You're never going to have a dreadful performance at her because she's got the confidence and she's got the experience. And I think that's going to be massive for Ailey, by the way. I think that will actually bring her game on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you could also see that in the pre-match warm-up, which obviously you couldn't because you weren't there. But yeah, I mean, you can tell that she's experienced. Even if you knew nothing about her, and you just looked at her, you'd say by the way she warmed up, and as you say when she came on, you could just say, look, she's got experience. But just to close off the substitutions, Lee Ming-Wen came on after 72 minutes, as Alan says, for Ailey Austin, and Jodie McCleary got a rest as well, and Laura Croft. I mean, May Croft came on.
I said Lara, right?
At the same time. And along with Fallon Connolly-Jackson, who really needs to change her name, came on for Nick Dock. At the same time she came on, it was great to see Raf Allen get some more minutes because they're still bleeding her back in from her injury as well. She came on for Jess Pegram, who was steady enough at the back, didn't really have a lot to do, but steady enough at the back.
Yeah, listen, this season alone will do wonders for Jess. I've said a lot, Jess looks like an academy player and needs exposure to first team football player to start looking at a first team football player. And that's not meant as a criticism in any sort of way. That's just, you see it so often with young players, they look like they've just came out of an academy, and it takes a while before they look like first team football players. And I think Jess is certainly relishing the challenge of playing up here and playing for Rangers, and she's certainly developing. She certainly took some rough treatment, and it's a school of hard knocks for her coming up here, but she's standing up to it. She's developing. She's been more expansive in her passing, and just being generally more solid as a centre back, which is great to see. But having Laura Rafferty back fit, she's not been on the park a couple of times in a couple of games. We've got two weeks before next game. They'll be at home against Renfrew, and it'll be a great chance for Laura to continue working on the fitness, building herself back up and getting ready to start, and hopefully playing 45, maybe 60 minutes against Renfrew.
Yeah, just to give you a bit of my point of view on Jess, I've never seen her before, right? I'd never seen her play before. So when I went to the game last night, well, I think what you said was pretty spot on. I looked at her and I could see right away that she doesn't look as if she's played many first team games. The way you can tell a lot of the times for me, because obviously I've been to a lot of academy games with my brother growing up, and then when you see him go in and you get higher and higher in teams and stuff, our positioning's a little bit off, and you can see that she's not fully confident on the park as well. But she's a big unit, a lassie. She's a big lassie. Like you're saying now, she's no scared to go into a tackle. She's no scared to go toe to toe with other players. She's got a lot of development to do, but she definitely looks like one for the future.
No, without any question. I mean, it's a case of whether or not we can get her on a permanent, because she's only on loan from Brighton, so it's whether they'll maybe even give us on another year's loan. Depends what their plans are for her, I guess. But Alan, nothing else really happened in the game. I mean, if you watch the Rangers TV highlights, the only thing they show you after that, really, I think was Cammie's attempt at the back post. They don't even show you Mia's second half one off the woodwork, so there wasn't really a lot else happened in the second.
Which one off the woodwork?
Well,
to be fair, Mia hitting the woodwork was a sclaff cross in the second half. The one that she cannoned off the bar in the first half was certainly unlucky. Cammie really should have scored twice, with her header and another chance she had, but probably denied a penalty as well. Without question.
Didn't even show it in the highlights. Ridiculous.
We were fortunate enough to be more than within shouting distance of the assistant, who certainly got thoughts.
and Matt Ear, Alan.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you sit in front of me at football. So
you certainly get your thoughts, Alan. You certainly get your thoughts.
Yeah, ignored them too, but that'll no change anytime soon.
Maybe he never heard you, Al.
I highly doubt that. Saying that, maybe his hearing's as bad as his eyesight, so
if he didn't hear Alan, I'll need to give my missus his business card and she'll sort him out with hearing aids, because I think somebody at the back of the country park heard Alan. You know what I mean? So
I think Carol heard them in Aberdeen.
It makes a change from me shouting that, I suppose. So, but that was it, folks. A nice, comfortable 3-0 win against Motherwell. It probably should have been more, but we can't complain. 3 goals, a clean sheet, some decent performances, no injuries that we know of. Some game time for players coming back. Great to see Lee Meng-Gwen back from her. What was it they said? It was almost the Chinese Olympics that she was away playing in. Not quite sure how that works. Yes, Paul, Lizzie's out injured. Alan, do we know who she is?
I know Paul had put that in the chat earlier, so we know Lizzie will be out probably for a few months. I don't think we'll see Lizzie back anytime soon. Sarah will hopefully be back with the team in January. We might see Sarah on the park in January. Kathy will hopefully be back by January. Brogan hopefully back before the end of the year. We've got 3 games left this year, and hopefully we'll see Brogan back on the pitch before Christmas, which would be an absolutely wonderful Christmas present to Rangers fans, but also to Brogan, who is absolutely champing at a bit to get back on the park and absolutely hating watching for the side of the park. So, injury front, there's still some challenges in the squad, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we're getting closer to January, and hopefully being able to just strengthen the squad a wee bit.
Yeah, we're also getting closer to the main pod at 7:30. So, Martin, if you can make this very, very brief. Paul's asked a couple of times, what's your thoughts on Shinji Kim?
I think she's a Rolls Royce, a footballer. I really, really like her. I think she's adapted to the Scottish game so quickly. She holds that midfield together. She is very, very intelligent on the ball. She's very good at passing. She's very good at linking up the play. There's not that many deficiencies in her game that I can see, albeit, like I say, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watch the women every week, because I don't. But every time I've watched her, I watched her in the Old Firm game, and she played that phenomenal ball through to Mia for the goal as well. I think she's an absolute Rolls Royce player, and I'm really, really impressed with her.
And just to finish up, an interesting story about Shinji Kim, obviously on loan from Roma, and we couldn't work out. We got a heads up that she was coming to sign for us, because all the players in the team followed her on Instagram, and we couldn't quite work out how. But we found out on Wednesday, Alan, didn't we? How come they all knew she was coming? Because although she couldn't come over here because the deal wasn't done, the work permits, etc., because she was in Italy and we had pre-season in Italy, she came to see us for a week, which was quite nice. So that explained that. So that was quite good to know as well. Although, we were told that they're not going to sort out the pre-season venues by potential signings.
Can I just ask really quickly before we finish, because I'll forget to ask this question? Do you think there's any chance that we can get her on a permanent move, or is that not going to happen?
I wouldn't think so, but
I think there's a slim chance. I don't think we ever expected we'd have got Liv McLaughlin on a permanent deal when she joined from Aston Villa on loan. She was heavily fancied at Villa and offered a new deal at Villa, but we got her on a 2-year contract. So
would she be in our wage range, Al?
I think possibly. I don't think the women are paid massively in Italy. Certainly, I think getting European football will make a massive difference in where we could attract Shinji to stay. I don't know our contract situation at Roma, if it's maybe up in the summer, or if we'd have to offer Roma something to actually buy her a contract. But certainly being successful will give us a much better chance of keeping players and attracting more players of the calibre of Shinji.
I think she'd be perfect for and I hate to say it, for the WSL. I really do.
Well, here's hope we can get her, and then a couple of years down the line sell her to the WSL. That would be how it's supposed to work. Anyway, folks, as I say, the main podcast for members coming up in 7 minutes' time. I believe Martin, are you on that, Martin? Are you?
Yeah.
Martin, you go. Martin will be back again. So we better go and give the boss time to go and get himself another cup of coffee, and give Alan time to get to Carluke for the game that he's got tonight, because he's an absolute madman. So, Martin, thanks for stepping into the breach when with a few call-offs due to work commitments, and that can't be helped. Alan, as always, thank you very much, and enjoy Carluke. Next week is international. There's not a game next week, but keep the notifications on, because we'll probably do something. As yet, what I don't know, but we'll probably do something just for consistency. And if you are not already a member, the links are in the description. Join us on YouTube or Patreon for less than the price of a cup of coffee a month.
Martin's getting a lodger.
Well, I feel as if I speak to the members more than I speak to my own missus, which is
she's
probably
absolutely
true.
delighted about. She's absolutely delighted about.
She loves my career switch. She loves it.
So does the Doug by the sound of it. Anyway,
yes.
That's it for tonight, folks. Stick around for the main pod, when you can talk about goings on at Ibrox today. I believe 1 or 2 things happened at Rangers today. Martin's working on his CV, and if we thought the last CEO was bad, wait to see if Martin gets the gig. And we'll catch you here again, hopefully next Monday, if not in 2 weeks' time, for more on the Rangers women's team. good night.